just can't help but think that this is part of something much larger and darker as, we've seen so many politically motivated crimes. So again, real monsters are out there who don't do anything other than acting out of their own deranged passions. They might have been brainwashed by the media, puppeteered by ideology and fear that brings them to do these despicable acts. Or it's something like these designed psyops and laboratories that we could talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, or maybe lesser known ones like the judge who was going to determine whether there was, like, I think it was corruption with the Epstein bank accounts. And someone showed up to their house, much like this story. So the gentleman showed up dressed as a cop. That story with the Epstein judge, FedEx employee, showed up and actually assassinated her son. So I tend to think that a lot of these are unfortunately activated actors. And you know what? It still remains to be seen. But a lot of misinformation and disinformation and chaos surrounds these stories. And they help to destabilize everyone paying attention. So with this guy in Minnesota, it reminds me of like accelerationist behavior. And so that's like a good example of that would be the New Zealand shooter from some years back at the Christchurch, where that was a straight up accelerationist. They plant certain things of evidence in a so-called manifesto that allows the political sides, both sides of the politics, to then say, they can point the finger at the other side and say, they're to blame. It's the other person. See, they voted this way. They thought this way. They listened to this person, much like the No Kings posters or flyers that were found in the Minnesota shooter's car. But it's all an attempt to destabilize your sense of reality and to move you into, they want to fight for your sympathy for whatever it is that they're trying to promote, which in this case is it's politically motivated. So, you know, with this story, it's just, I think it's like a distraction from something bigger, or they're just trying to instill fear. And if you want, Brandon, if you can pull up, I want to zero in on this video of the roommate, the big guy in the red shirt, because this is when I started to really think, this is bizarre. This is a bizarre situation. So for those who haven't paid this close attention to this story, this gentleman was interviewed by lots of people, CBS being one of them. And I believe we're about to see the CBS interview portion. He claims to be the roommate of the suspect, the person who did this shooting. And this man, the shooter, was allegedly a family man, had a big house on a big piece of property, but also, oddly enough, had two roommates in another house. And so this is, let's hear from this person.
Can you talk about his politics a little bit? I know that you had some discussions. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, everyone's calling him a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. He would be offended if people called him a Democrat. So, but he, because of this board thing he was on for Governor Walz, it wasn't to serve. He was just serving the community. But I can't believe a political issue would cause him to do such things.
Did he ever bring up the senator or the representative who were targeted?
Like I was saying, no, he never talked about that. I didn't know those people. I didn't recognize their names.
Any politicians he mentioned?
Can you stop it right there? Yeah. Is anything weird to you about this so far?
Everything, for some reason, seems weird about this. The long pauses, like he's trying to think of what to say. I mean, you know, you see this a lot with people who are like kind of pre-vamped before the shows and before interviews. You know, it's hard to tell, you know, whether he's lying about any of this yet, because I haven't delved too much into this guy yet.
I feel like this is part of the narrative control, and this is part of the psyop. And also the thing that, when I first watched this video, the thing that really bothered me was the jump cuts to the reporter.
Yeah.
And it looks like she's in a different place. Now, she was there. I did a lot of digging. She was there. But what's weird to me is you can't find the interview of her talking to this guy fully.
The other thing I'm noticing is the audio is terrible. Like, they didn't have this guy mic'd.
But hers is fine.
But hers is fine. And I'm wondering if maybe it was just all around bad and they refilmed her
Could've.
asking the questions so that it didn't seem as terrible.
Yep. Totally.
Because you could barely, like, the first round of these questions you can't even hear.
Yep.
And his response, I mean, I just had the board cranked all the way up for that, and I still could barely hear him. So apologies for the audio. That is not our fault.
That's CBS's fault. She was there. Like I tweeted this morning. It doesn't even look like she's there, but there are photos of her there. What I'm curious about is why they had to redo it. Maybe it's just because it was that bad, but it does seem like narrative control, and everything he says feels canned to me. And it just adds more to this idea of like we're trying to sell you on the fact that he's a certain way. He has a certain political persuasion. He goes on to later say, you know, he liked Trump, but he didn't like, and he says Jim Walls or Jim Biden, which is bizarre to me. You'll see here that they actually had to correct him in the captions. But that's what he said. Maybe he's just an idiot. But something tells me that this guy can't be trusted. Maybe he's just inserted himself. I call these people, if it's the kind of person that inserted himself into the situation, I call them grief whores. I see them a lot when I do like true crime writing. People who want to be a part of these like horrible crimes for notoriety or who knows what. Maybe they get off on it. I don't know. Like
that David Hogg kid.
Like David Hogg. Yeah, look where that got him. But something about this just seems so weird and canned. And when I shared it, I saw someone say like it doesn't remind them of the medical examiner at Sandy Hook, which is a very bizarre interview. If you guys haven't seen it, the guy's laughing throughout the interview about these horrific, children's bodies. It's just bizarre. What this reminds me of also is just like something like the Thomas Matthew Crooks situation. Right after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, everything was true and everything was not true about that shooter. He was a Trump supporter. He was a leftist. He was a loner. He did target practice where the FBI does target practice. Everything was just bizarre, and it was like a fog of war situation where they're pumping information out into the people just to make all of us emotionally attached and blame the other, because it's like I call it that part of the reality buffet where, hey, he's got this and that must mean he's my political enemy, and it's confirming all my biases. You got to really watch out for this. This is the kind of stuff we talked about on Thursday, where they're going to try to do these things. And I'm not saying people didn't die. I think violence has been done, but we watch out the symptoms, the consequences of this violence, the way media puts out all this strange information. I don't know how much they vetted this person. If you do some digging, I was obsessed with this earlier today. I did some digging on, he says his name is David Carlson, and this a lot of this happened in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. There's another David R. Carlson in the same area who's 35. Clearly this guy's not 35, and that person has a really bizarre rap sheet. So it's like, how are they connected? Not that means this guy is guilty, but it's just, you go look that up, and that person is a deviant who brought children into their van multiple times. You can go look up the court cases that happened with that. The other thing is, this person goes on to say he has text messages about the crime that Boelter committed. I'm like, well, why does he still have a cell phone? Why is this guy allowed to have what should be evidence, right? Which again might remind a lot of you of the Butler shooting, where some random person in a suit got up on that sloped roof and got everyone to send them pictures of stuff, and he just disappeared.
Yeah.
It also, the way that whole thing ended, some of you might remember there was an investigation that a senator did, and they cremated Crooks's body before anyone else could investigate it. That's bizarre. You might also remember that he had no silverware in his house. The other thing this reminded me of, we're talking about PSYOPs, we're talking about, for those just joining us, I'm going down this little rabbit hole of the roommate of Vance Boelter, the Minnesota shooter, that I find very bizarre. And the things it's reminding me of, like you might remember January 1st started with a lot of violence in this country. There was a blown up Tesla outside a Trump Tower, seemed very symbolic of something. A lot of weird news stories were breaking out of that, even trying to connect it to the drones in New Jersey, and that he was trying to be a whistleblower. That all seems suspicious to me. But more in line of this story would be the Bourbon terrorist attack on the same day, when the terrorist drove his truck through a crowd. And oddly enough, a reporter was given access to his house like immediately after, which I just thought was insane to get that access when it's still a crime scene. Allegedly, the authorities said they were done with it, but like they were able to see, the reporter was able to see the chemicals that he was making bombs with. And oh, of course, the Quran was open to the exact page about becoming a martyr. It just seemed really, really on the nose.
Yeah, that's really still sounds like an active crime scene to me. So it's very strange that they would just be done with it that quickly.
So in my mind, it's like this must be narrative. And maybe I'm just crazy. You know, that's very possible. But I think this is done for a reason. And I think a lot of people on both sides, because I was just saying on IRL for those who are watching, and thank you to those who are tuning in now who just left IRL. Thanks for joining us. But I was saying like these things are not unique. We have a lot of politically activated violence baked into this country's DNA. And I was bringing up the case of Jimmy Shaver, who was someone who, if you read Operation Chaos, the book Chaos, about Operation Chaos, he allegedly was experimented on by Jolly West, who was a part of conducting these studies. And Jimmy Shaver was accused of abducting a young girl, 3-year-old, and murdering her. And it's just an insanely depraved situation, but he had no memory of it. And people associate him and his Jolly West connection as being like, maybe that was like something went wrong with the experiments. And if you haven't done any Jolly West reading, you can look into Chaos for sure, but also look up to his connection to Jack Ruby, the gentleman who shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald. When Jack Ruby went to the hospital, they allowed Jolly West to get into that room, and Jack Ruby went crazy after that, like literally like lost his mind after that. My interpretation of that is that actually Jolly West is quite like the Scarecrow character from Batman, who gets into these rooms and blows something, you know, chemical into them and makes them nuts, which is really how they talk about what happened with Jack Ruby. And sort of what Jimmy Shaver and what happened with him, having no memory. Now, he was found guilty, and they claimed he was sane, and he might have been. Maybe it was just a snap, one of those real monster situations. But you can't help but overlook his connections to something like MKUltra. When they were dosing people with acid, Jolly West was doing that. You know, it's a horrible, horrible situation. But that MKUltra program was taking Johns off the street, putting them in these rooms waiting for their hooker. And while the hooker was out, for the midnight operation, they called it Operation Climax, they were just pumping aerosolized LSD into the room just to observe how it would affect their mindset. That can't be good. So outside of just this roommate and this bizarre narrative he's spinning, and I just don't buy it, at the end of this he cries. Maybe we should keep playing just a little bit of it. You can go to skip a little bit, because I know the audio is bad.
Yeah, because we've got a couple of different clips here from this same interview.
Yeah, maybe go to the end of this one. I think he cries in this one. I want to know what you guys think. Is this for real?
Didn't like Jim Biden. I don't like this, that Tim Wall did this. I don't like that they did that, because he's like my best friend, so I don't want him to be killed. I don't want him to kill anyone else, you know. So I think if I saw him, I could talk him down. But
he texted you.
I don't know where he is.
How does he have that phone still?
And did he listen to any particular podcasts or TV shows or anything online that concerns
This
you?
is good to hear too.
Well, you listen to InfoWars. InfoWars. But,
He listened to Inverted World Live. No,
Oh, jeez.
no.
Yep. I will say that
to listen.
our friend Chase Geyser over at InfoWars has confirmed at least this person hasn't purchased anything from the InfoWars store.
Okay.
But there is that. But it's just interesting that they're trying to paint this guy like this while also, well, you'll hear him say it in the end. Let's press play.
Said, well, it's like 50% truth. And, you know, I kind of said, don't take everything what they say for granted. I wasn't a real truthful. I mean, they're on for some things, but some things are way off.
Did he talk much about Trump? And what did he say, if so?
I was a Trump supporter. Voted for Trump. You like Trump? I like Trump. And,
Okay, it doesn't. At the end of this one,
Interesting.
in another clip, he starts to cry.
Yeah, I got this one right here.
Okay, and I watched this one in full thinking I would see the CBS journalist asking her questions because I'm so curious about it. But you will see out of the left corner for a brief second her photographer with the blue shirt and the camera. But yeah, let's hear what he has to say here.
No, because he was on call for work, and he'd always say, yeah, I need rest for work, so I'm sharp. Because he was extracting eyeballs, so gotta be sharp for
I
that.
remember him walking out of the house, like hearing him walking out or anything.
Nope.
Was it unusual for him to go to bed at 7 p.m.? I mean, when you say
Pause it.
Well, it
real quick,
depends on the
sorry.
shift, no.
Why, why is no one asking why he's your roommate? If you remember the very beginning of this manhunt, the aerial footage of his big house on that nice piece of property, why is he your? I mean, he kind of says just a place to rest and stuff, but why is a married man? So is there like some infidelity happening? Was he not? Did he not have a married life just to go with like the normal situation? I just think this guy is full of it or planted. But let's hear what else he has to say.
He's working all kinds of hours. Didn't seem odd, no.
Did he give you any emotional message, said that he loves you besides the text messages or something like that that seemed off?
Well, he said that he made some choices. And he said, you guys don't know anything about it, but yeah.
Another big ass.
But he said he didn't have much time to live.
Another big ass. Do you mind if I
Again,
take a picture?
I just want to
of
say,
the-
like, they ask him to see the phone. He says no. I'm like, how do you have the phone? Just, it's very bizarre to me. But maybe, you could say the media got to him first, which is very possible. There's just something shifty about this interview. Again, he's saying he liked Trump voter. He watched InfoWars, of course, right? Of all the places he watched InfoWars, because they're subliminally trying to get you to remember Sandy Hook. And that's a big no-no to even question that. You know what they did to Alex about all that stuff for just questioning aspects of that insane situation. That's why I think that has been inserted into this conversation. Of all the places, I just don't buy it. But let's continue.
text message.
Nah,
You
I
can
kind
block
of,
out his number.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I kind of keep that private because I read it to people and I don't know. I just got to get going. I have to.
Is his phone still ringing when you called?
No, it's,
Go straight to voicemail?
yeah, just voicemail. I can't, he doesn't want me involved.
Yeah.
So he's not going to call me. He's not going to receive calls from me.
Can we at least see the text?
Well, everyone's taking pictures. I don't know why I'm so. He sent it to me and a friend, so it wasn't just me. And I don't know if my friend would think about me sharing that with everybody.
Okay, so friend not disclosed, but also disclosed.
Weird. Like it's clues for the cops if they're not in on this somehow.
Yeah, I don't see any way that his name doesn't come to light, because, I mean, all they have to do is subpoena this guy's phone records,
Right.
and I mean, if they put two and two together and find out where that text went, I mean, if they've got the shooter's cell phone, they're gonna know where that text went. They're gonna track that number down, and
Yeah.
they're gonna trace it back.
I think
to
this
that
is
guy,
going to
so-
this is an important video, whether he's connected to it or not, just in terms of what the media is willing to do. And real quick, before we go back, this is so important to me because this is, at the very least, this says so much about the media. I know everyone listening knows how horrible journalists are, and they're so hungry to do stuff like this and get that footage of this guy crying and hear any insights to him. But the media, all of it, podcasts, Fox 5, everyone, you need to be suspicious of everything, like I said last week, that confirms any bias you might have. Because you could see how this will confirm the bias of people who want the shooter to be a deranged Trump voter. But that doesn't make any sense to me since he was appointed by Walz. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And there's also a million stories floating around about the suspect. Preacher, he had some security firm, which might be why someone commented earlier on my Twitter, it might be why he had the cop car, and it was interesting to see the skin mask that we were talking about last week or 2 weeks ago show up. He was wearing the skin mask. We should actually pull that up after this to show people, I'm sure everyone's seen the camera footage of him in the mask, but there's a face forward image that's really terrifying. But the media is so important to all these situations.